Hi, I'm Jason. Today we're going to take a look at Flashpoint Fire Rescue, or Flashpoint as it's known. This is a cooperative game of being firefighters and saving people from a burning building before either too many people are lost in the fire or the whole building actually collapses. So I'm going to set up a family game for you here, which is the introductory level. There's nothing randomized, it's all in predetermined places to make things a little bit easier as you get into the game. There's a lot of things in the box that you won't need, so let's just focus on what you do need. So first, you're going to need a whole bunch of these fire markers. They got fire on one side and smoke on the other side. And for the family game, you're going to place them in 3 specific places, which are the initial explosions in the house. So an explosion is when a space explodes, it spreads fire to the orthogonally adjacent spaces, unless there's walls there. So we have one explosion up here. We have one explosion here in the kitchen. And we have one explosion down here in this room. Now I realize that this explosion could go, or should go, both ways here. I don't know why it doesn't. That's just the way that the rules say that it works. So put the rest of the fire and smoke tokens off to the side. You will need those. Next, you're going to put doors on any of these internal door spaces. The outside doors are always open. The inside doors start closed. There, and there. And then you're going to take these blue point of interest tokens, which are the people you're going to rescue. You're going to take, of the amount that come in the box, some of them are blank and some of them have people on them. You're going to take 10 with people and 5 blanks, shuffle them together, and then you put them in these 3 places. On this toilet, on that toilet, and over here in the dining room. Shuffle the rest of them, make sure you don't know which ones are what. As they come out, they're going to be a mystery whether they're a person you need to rescue or a blank that's going to waste your time getting to them. Additionally, you'll need the dice, which you'll roll every turn, and there's 24 black cubes which represent damage to walls as explosions happen. So you can set those off to the side, we don't need any of those just yet. And then lastly, you're going to need these green saved action markers. So on your turn, you get 4 action points. If you don't use them all, you can save some. You can save up to 4. And you just take tokens, put them on your character card, and you'll spend them as you need them. So that's the board setup. And the last thing is character setup, which is very straightforward in the beginner game. Everyone gets a colored card representing the color of their figure. And you put your figure where you want to start on the board. And that's the setup. So over the course of the game, here's how the turns work. You get an action card here, it tells you how many action points to spend to do each action. 1 action point to move, 1 action point will turn a fire into a smoke, 1 will take a smoke off the board, so you could say that 2 action points clears 1 fire. To move with a person, it costs you doubles, costs you 2 action points. To save a person, all you have to do is take them outside the building. In the advanced game, it's more complicated, but the beginner game, outside the building, they're safe. And at the end of your turn, you're going to roll the fire dice to see where new fire is spread, and you're going to put a smoke token in that location. So the red die corresponds to the rows, and the black die corresponds to the 8 columns. And you'll put a smoke wherever you roll. If you roll a spot that's already a fire, or already a smoke, it becomes a fire. And if you roll a spot that's already a fire, there's an explosion. And we'll see how that works when an explosion happens, because it will. And then if a fire ever spreads into a space with a firefighter, you get knocked down and transported to the nearest blue ambulance space. And if a fire spreads into a space with a victim, they are lost, they get moved to the lost space. So if we lose 4 victims, we lose. If we run out of damage cubes, we lose. But if we get to put 7 victims in the rescued space over here, then we win. We're just going to jump in here. I'm going to start with the blue player over here. And he's going to move in for 1 action point. He's going to turn this into a smoke and then remove it. That's 3 action points. And for the 4th action, he's going to move here. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if you were to turn a fire into a smoke and then leave it, at the end of your turn, we're going to roll for new fire to show up. And once we've done that and resolved that, any smoke that is next to fire just becomes fire again. So it's not super useful to turn fire into smoke and then leave it. Now, it could be in certain circumstances. To move through a fire costs 2 action points. To move through a smoke doesn't cost anything extra. So I guess if you wanted to get somewhere quickly, you could turn a fire into a smoke to move through it, and then it turns into smoke, or it turns into fire as you at the end of your turn. So I've never done that. I don't know if that's a strategy that makes any sense, but I guess it's a way you could minimize fire temporarily. Anyway, so that's the end of blue's turn. So the end of everyone's turn, you take the 2 dice here, and we roll them. And we got red 5, black 3. I'll call it 5-3 for the rest of the game. So red 5 is this row here, and black 3 is here. So right here where they meet, we've got a smoke. Now, if this was already a smoke, it would turn into a fire, and if it was already a fire, it would explode. I'm not going to explain explosions before they happen. They will happen. We'll get there when we get there. So now is the orange player's turn. So orange is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Use all 4 action points to get to this victim. We flip it, and it's blank. So we set that aside. And I mean, it was a waste of a turn, but at least we know that there's no victim over there. So at the end of orange's turn, 2 things will happen. First, we'll roll the dice for fire, and I rolled 3, 4. Okay, so 3 things are going to happen. 1, we're going to roll for fire. 2, we're going to have an explosion. And 3, we're going to have to replace the 3rd victim marker on the board. So how do explosions work? I didn't think they'd happen this quickly. When a space explodes, fire will expand out in all 4 directions as far as it can. Or, yeah, to the next point that doesn't have fire. So in this case, it can go all the way down here and spread to here. In this direction, there's a door, so we can't spread. If the door was open, it would spread through the door. But because it's closed, it actually blows the door off, and now there's no door there. In this direction, does the same thing. It blows off this door. And in this direction, there is no door, but there is a wall, and the wall will take 1 damage. And again, if it takes 2 damage, then the wall is considered not to be there, and then fire could go straight through. So the last thing that happens on orange's turn is we have to replace a point of interest marker. It's really easy to forget to do this part. We miss it all the time, and it really messes up turns when you have to go back and go, oh, there would have been a guy here, and now we just have to pretend that it wasn't. So to generate one of these, you do the same thing as the fire. You roll the coordinates dice. I rolled this space here. Now, if this had been on fire, we wouldn't put a guy there. If there'd been another point of interest or a firefighter, we wouldn't put a token here. There's little arrows in the corners that you definitely can't see on the capture here that point in a direction. So if this was on fire, it would point up and would go, okay, put it here instead. Well, that's on fire. So you go here, then here, then here, and then here. And there's an empty space, so it would go there. But there's no fire here, so it's fine. You can go right there. And again, we don't know if this is a person or a blank. So now it's yellow's turn. And yellow's going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4 to open the door. And that's his whole turn. So he's going to roll dice. 1, 7 is actually right there where I rolled the dice. And we're back to blue. So blue is going to go 1, 2 to put out this fire. And then he could move in here and turn this into a smoke, and then this next to fire will turn back into fire. So he's going to stay here, and he's going to put this fire out for his 3rd and 4th action point. Roll dice, 4, 3. It's right here. It's next to fire. It becomes fire. The only thing we haven't seen yet is how you actually rescue people. 1, 2, 3. So that's actually a person. To rescue someone in the family game, the beginner game, all you have to do is get them out of the house and they're rescued automatically. That changes in the advanced game, but for our purposes, all we have to do is get somebody outside the building and they are saved. So yellow has 1 action point left. He's going to save it up, because to move with someone you have to move. It takes 2 actions to move at a time. So we'll roll dice for yellow's turn. 5, 6. It's 5, 6 is down here. It's already on fire. So fire will spread this way. And it can't spread in any other direction, so damage cube there, and there, and there. We have 24 damage cubes. And we're down to 20. To get this person out of the building would cost 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 points, which is, what, 3.5 turns? Or he can spend 2 action points to do this, break this wall, and then 2 action points to destroy this wall, and then next turn he can just go, boop, outside the door. So we don't want to spend damage cubes, we don't want like the house to collapse, but in an instance like this, actually in most beginner games, I will start here and then my first action will break down this wall and step inside, because there's always someone here in the bathroom in beginner games. Yeah, in an instance where you're not near a door, I mean, this is just what you have to do. So I roll dice on yellow's turn for fire at 6, 5. Just right here. Now, this door is open, which means this is next to fire, and that's next to fire now. Orange, 1, 2, 3. Jeez. Okay, so that's all 5 blanks. So this one, for 4 action points, has to be a person. It's the cat. Okay. And yes, I know what you're thinking. It costs double action points to move with a person. It also costs double action points to move with either the cat or the dog. I don't know why. Maybe they struggle. But yeah, that's just a thing. Yellow, they're going to go 2 action points to step outside. We put this person over in the saved space. That's 1 of 7 we have to save. And then 2, 5 is already on fire. So we're going to lose somebody. So fire spreads, blows this door off, spreads this way, goes this way and damages this wall, and goes this way and damages this wall. So we've lost this person, which we know is a person because all the blanks are gone. And now this is next to fire because the door doesn't exist. So that's a fire, and that's a fire, and that's a fire. Now we've seen that it can get a little out of control very quickly without proper fire management. So that was blue's turn. So orange no longer has a person to save. Oh wait, no, we gotta replace the guy the one that died. They show up at 4, 7 right here. Okay, now we're on blue. He goes 2, 3, 4. Clear his path so we can do. So next turn we go 2, 4 and be safe and we'll win. But we do have 3 fire rolls before then, and who knows. So 6, 7 is of course on fire. So blue goes 2, 4, saves our 7th person, and we win with 8 damage cubes left. A lot less than I thought we would have. Only 1 person lost. We got all 5 blanks. That really slowed us down a little bit. And, I mean, we have a house that's very on fire. But that's pretty typical. Like, it scales up really quickly. In our group, we tend to win more than we lose, but a lot of the wins are real, like, close like this. Like, yeah, fine, we didn't get close to losing 4 people, but, like, this is all the damage cubes we had left. 8 cubes. That's not many explosions, and we've got a lot of fire spaces. Like, say blue had not got out on that turn, they had to roll. Let's just see what happened. 5, 3. It's right here. So that's another damage cube there. Fire, fire, fire outside the door here. So, yeah, it gets pretty dicey pretty quickly, but that's Flashpoint Fire Rescue for you. So, Flashpoint Fire Rescue. That's a pretty typical game. For 3 players. For more players, it goes up to 6. The only difference really is you're going to be rolling the die more time, the fire dice, more times before your next turn. So like you roll the dice, 5 other rolls will happen until you get to your next turn. So the house is going to change dramatically, but in theory, those other 5 people will still be working to do their best to clear out as much of the problem as possible. Now, so that was a beginner game. So what is the difference between this and the advanced game? Well, basically, like Flashpoint boils down to modules that you can add in. They don't really call them modules, but you can think of them as modules. So the one that I would always recommend using is the specialists. So there's a deck of specialist cards here that I could have taken out in advance. Things like the rescue specialist. So the rescue specialist chops walls for less. It costs her 1 action point to put 1 damage cube out. So she could chop a wall and move into a space in 1 turn. And a lot of them are like that. Like the CAFS firefighter, he has 3 action points and 3 free action points to use on fire exclusively, like putting out fires. Some of the characters in here are very specifically like designed to be used for a certain task. Like you don't want to be the paramedic and try to put out fires. You don't want to be the CAFS firefighter and try to save people because he's only got 3 movement points. He can move 1 space per turn with a victim. But then you have fun ones like the fire captain who can move other players on their turn. There's hazmat tokens that you can randomly put out on the board. Players have to take them and move them outside the building like a normal victim. And if they catch fire, they explode and they cause an explosion. So you got characters. You got hazmats that just add a little bit of extra danger. You can add the actual fire truck and the ambulance. So in the base game, when you save someone, you just move them outside the building. No matter where they are, they're safe. In the sort of advanced game, or like the normal difficulty game, you have to bring them to the ambulance specifically. And you can use action points to radio the ambulance to move it to whatever space you need. And you have to bring them to the ambulance, and then they're safe. They can hang out in the sidewalk. They're not safe until the ambulance shows up. Then they get saved automatically. And then the fire truck parks in one of these orange spaces, and when you're on that, you can spend action points to use the deck gun and blast 1/4 of the board with the fire hose. And each you can't really see, but there are dotted red lines indicating what space corresponds to what quadrant of the board. So like this orange space down here affects the bottom left corner. And you just roll dice, and it's same as rolling for fire. You get coordinates, and it does splash damage to the space, and every space next to it puts fire out. The fire truck also allows you to take the crew change action. So if you're the hazmat technician, and you've cleared all the hazmats, and you are no longer necessary, you can go back to the truck, and when you start your turn on the truck, your first action can be change class to a different character, and just pick whatever character you want. Anyone can do that. You go with the fire truck, change up. We don't do it too often because it is kind of a waste of a turn, because you have to get all the way to the fire truck and then stop there, and then your next turn you have to spend 2 action points to change class. So your next turn is also only a half turn. So it's worth it if you really need to change, and if you don't really need to, then you could probably avoid it. For the base game, that's the whole thing. That's all you can add. That's all the modules, and the difficulty is based on how many explosions you start with initially. So with base game, it's 3. You can add a 4th one to make it a little more difficult. You can randomize the setup. So rather than doing what the rules say for the family game, you can roll for each of the explosions and each of the points of interest, the hazmats and all that. So totally random each time. If you get to a point where you think, we've played Flashpoint, we know Flashpoint, it's not that it's too easy, but it's too samey. Well, first thing you do is flip the board over, because the board is double-sided, and it's got a totally different layout of a house on that side. But if even that's too samey for you, there are many expansions, and they add a variety of things to just change it up. So I'll show you some boards here. This one here, for example, is the mechanic. I think it's, or like the garage, I think. This one here is sort of a factory, so there's explosive equipment down here that can take damage and explode. The smallest expansion I have, an attic or a basement to any map. So we could play this board here and also had this board sitting outside because, you know, this house has a basement. So this map here is the penthouse. So it's only accessible by these elevators. Everything else is a wall, but you can use a ladder to get up to the level and then I guess bust in the wall. The back side of this one is just another, I think it's the brownstone. So it's two separate houses. There's no doors. There's no doors down the middle here. It's two separate apartments. So if you want to go from one side to the other, you gotta break a wall. This is the submarine. And the submarine is interesting because you don't have a way to take people outside to save them. You bring them to one sort of safe space, which actually you can see right here. There's blue space. But that space is not safe from fire. So until you got all 7 people saved in that space, you don't win. Airplane hangar with a plane you can get onto. There's like ramps to get up here, and the wing is considered explosive, so because it's got fuel in there. This side is the subway station. This one's also interesting because you can only come down from the outside, and you can't go around the outside like in the base map. The base map, you can walk around the sidewalk if you want. So that's all the maps. So in addition to maps, each map adds certain things. Like the one adds ladders. I think the workshop adds floor damage. The fire truck normally shoots water that puts out fires. One of the expansions changes it to foam, so you shoot foam, and kind of like the same way that it would disperse fire in a sort of a cross pattern, you put foam markers out, and now the foam prevents fire from spreading into that space. Extreme Danger expansion adds actual minis. So like these ones here, they're fine. They're adorable little firefighter minis, but they all look the exact same, which is fine. But because if you have the specialists, and they all have like, you know, art that makes them look different from each other, the Extreme Danger expansion adds minis, which I will show you a picture of. I'm currently painting them, so it's a work in progress, but you can see how they look different. And for the most part, they look like the figure, the specialist they represent. And then the last one is the, as if the game isn't hard enough on greater difficulty, more difficult maps, there's an expansion that's literally called Tragic Events. And what it adds is these 2 decks. So at the end of your turn, before you roll a dice, you draw a card off the fire deck. And it might say just roll for fire, that's fine. But it might be an accelerate card, which says you roll the dice twice, so you advance fire twice. Also not so bad. But then it also says you'll start adding flare-up cards into the deck. And if you draw a flare-up card, what it does is you roll the dice, advance the fire, you add another flare-up card into the deck, so there's another one. Then you resolve an event card from the event deck. Then you draw another card off the fire deck, which could be a flare-up card. And I actually just played with these recently for the first time, and I lost because I drew 5 flare-ups in a row, and I ran out of damage cubes. There was just so many explosions and fires popping up all at once. However, on the plus side, the event deck is extremely cool. It adds new victims to the victim pool. It disabled the deck gun for the truck, wherever in the truck's current space, or it allowed a player to do a crew change for free, or just all sorts of different things, good and bad. So I don't love the fire deck, but even if I stop using this, I'm still going to have to find a way to use the event deck, because the event deck is just really, really neat. If you came here to learn about Flashpoint, you have, for sure. Hopefully my gameplay here, my demo has been informative as to how it works. I mean, it was the beginner game. Maybe I'll cut in here a little bit of the game I played on heroic difficulty, a 4-player game using the fire deck. It did not go super great. And the final card for Orange's turn is the Fire Rages. We get fire at 5/5. You better believe 5/5 is already on fire. And we don't have enough damage cubes. So the fire would spread this way to there, and then hit this wall, and this wall. We don't have a cube for this wall. so we lose. You can play the base Flashpoint game, like family mode, for your whole life and never miss anything. If you really think you need to add some more stuff in, there's stuff out there. And I mean, I have all of it, and I still basically don't use it. So you don't need to go all in to enjoy Flashpoint. We love Flashpoint. We don't play it enough anymore, which is a shame. But doing this video and like trying the game on Heroic the other day really makes me want to get back into it. I love Flashpoint Fire Rescue, and I hope that maybe this video has made you love Flashpoint Fire Rescue, because it's really worth checking out. So anyway, that's enough from me. Thanks for joining me for this look at one of my favorite, most played games, and we'll see you next time.